Gentlemen, welcome back to the shop. In our previous video, we talked about the rules of Pinewood Derby, and we went down the list in just excruciating detail to see how we can build both a fast car and a legal car. But that was just paper, so let's actually look at a real, honest-to-goodness Pinewood Derby car. Now you'll notice, super fast design, fast green paint, black wheels, pockets for weights, and of course the ever important arrow, because you surrender this car to some volunteers and they may not know the front is front and the back is back. Some designs are a little confusing as to what goes forward, so I always recommend put a little arrow there, help the volunteers out. So this being Cub Scouts, let's talk about the first rule of Cub Scouts. And no, it's not having fun. First rule of Cub Scouts, everyone stays safe. So you start with 8 fingers, 2 thumbs, or X number of fingers and X number of thumbs. You start with that number, you end with that number. So mom and dad, everybody keeps their fingers. That's the most important part. It also doesn't hurt to have some ear pluggers and let's see, safety squints. All good things. You're using power tools. Keep your fingers, keep your eyes, and of course your ears over time can get damaged as well. So before you end up with this guy, you first start with this guy. Now, I'm not a wood expert. I assume this is pine or something like that. First important thing to note are there are 2 slots. One with a little bit of room towards the end and one with a lot of room towards the end. You must, and the rules are a little vague from the 2016 rules, you must put your axles in these holes. Now, the Scout Shop sells jigs so that you can extend the wheelbase. You cannot extend the wheelbase for a 5-ounce Scout legal car. You know, the rules kind of say you can modify the wheels and axles with BSA approved tools and tools the Scout Shop sells. They also do sell tools that allow you to modify the wheelbase. You cannot do that for a Scout legal 5-ounce car. Now you might ask yourself, well, which end is front? Just about everyone on the internet agrees that the bigger gap to the end goes in the front, little gap towards the rear. My guess would be weight distribution based off the axle. I'm not a physicist or scientist. I'm just a bit twiddler. I go by what people tell me on the internet, and that seems like all the fast cars. Big gap to the front, little gap to the rear. So let's see what else we got here. Well, first of all, you're going to get a box like this from the pack. Let's see, can we see that? Model number 17006. So this has got everything you need to race your car except for elbow grease. So let's unpack this bad boy. All right, throw the box away. Now let's see. I've got 1 nail, I've got 2 nails, 3 nails, 4 nails. Most important thing at this point, take your wheels, take your nails, put them in a plastic bag because they will disappear. Just like a sock in a hamper, one of these nails is going to poof, gone. And the only way you're going to get more nails is buying a pack of wheels or another derby kit. So right now, put those away and save them. What I should point out, let's see, can we focus? If I rotate it, you can kind of see there are 2 burrs as part of the head making process on there. You're going to want to take those off. Easiest way is in a drill press or even just chucked up in a regular hand drill. Run a small file over that and then just progressively finer sandpaper until you're down to steel wool, and some people even do crazy things like brown paper bag on it. There's all kinds of stuff on the internet you can find there. But your wheels, as far as Henry Ford was concerned, any color you want, as long as it's black. That's true for the kit. But if you go to the Scout Shop, get yourself, of course, some black wheels. You got blue wheels. You can get some yellows. You can get some reds. You get some oranges. Almost every color in the rainbow. Haven't seen clear ones. Those would be pretty cool. But as long as you buy it from the Scout Shop, you're good to go. So if you get one of these tubes, You get some replacement nails in case you butcher them or you lose one. It happens. But I would not go to the scout shop and buy a whole bunch of tools. The pack, people within the pack have everything you need. Nail straightener, you drop your nail in there. Tappa, 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 one direction. Rotate, tappa, tappa, tappa again. Third time, tappa, tappa, tappa. You come out, nail, straight as you could ever want it. Little hand drill. Of course, we're not going to modify the wheelbase, but if you were, helps it a little bit easier than tearing up the wood. Here's my personal favorite. This little part here goes inside the axle hole, and then you have a spacer. Keeps you from driving your nail in too far, because you want a little bit of play there so that your wheel freely spins, but obviously you don't want to jam it all the way home, and it helps you put the nail in straight. Can we see there? There we go. So it fills in that gap a little bit, just enough for a nail to put in. While we're talking about that, my advice would be use a jig like this, put your nail in before you even cut your car, because the base of it right here is flat in case you decide to curve around it. Right here, it's going to be the easiest point to put a nail in. So you might want to put your nail in about halfway, maybe 2/3 of the way in, and then easily pull it out. I have a sacrificial nail because I don't want to booger up my good nail that I'm going to spend a bunch of time, or maybe I've already spent a bunch of time on. But that's one of my pro tips. First thing you do, put the nail in, take it out. That way you've kind of pushed the wood. You haven't sunk it in all the way, but enough where it's easier to get going in straight after you've carved and turned your car. Another thing I recommend, when you're at the point you're going to paint it, put a little piece of tape there. I like a little round sticky dot, because you don't want paint here, because paint's real tacky. You want bare wood there, and then what you'll do is put some graphite there, ground it in super tight, and you'll have a nice, almost friction-free surface between your wheel hub right here and the body, because they are going to rub together, but you don't want it stuttering and wiggling there against some tacky paint. So let's see what else we can get at the scout shop. Obviously, if you want to modify your wheel bender, again, I would kind of argue that's outside the legalities of a 5-ounce scout car, but the rules, 2016 rules say if you can buy it at the scout shop, you can modify your wheels and modify your nails to your heart's content. You got yourself a drilling jig in case you want to move the wheelbase. Again, not legal for a 5-ounce car. You can get super crazy. Wheel shaver can make your wheels perfectly round. Again, these things we'll have access to at our Pinewood Derby clinics. Again, a hub tool. It's needed for this guy, as well as polishing the little hub, taking the burrs off. There'll be some flashing here from the molding process. You'll want to sand all of that off. You don't want to go hog wild on this because you can damage the wheel. It's a fine balance between getting a perfectly round wheel and just butchering it. Now, some guys on the internet will say some of the molds are different, and there actually is a number in here. Can we see it? Oh, that's hard. Well, this is out of mold number 2, mold number 1. I can't even read that. Number 4 and number 2. So I got 2 2s. Now, the pros on the internet would say you want to run all of your wheels out of the same number mold to be the most consistent. I don't know if that's true. My cars are never good enough. But if you want to play with that, you can buy these. These are about $2 a pop at the scout shop, so you can buy 3 or 4 of them. You're surely to get 4 of the same number out of that. You can trade with them with friends, all that kind of good stuff. Now, weight. Weight's an important part. You want to get to 5 ounces. You want to take that potential energy, transfer it to kinetic energy, and get the most momentum going down the track. Tungsten is your best bet for densest material that you can buy. Now, there are some lead weight guys. This might even be zinc, something along those lines. The problem here, to get the 5 ounce, you're going to need a lot of this stuff. This, you only need 2 or 3. Now, it's pricier than sin, but it's the best stuff out there. You get what you pay for. Now, mentioning these guys, you can use them as weight. The problem is, if you look, let's see if we can pull it right under here, there is guide rails that run down the track, the weights like this will interfere with it. So I don't recommend ever putting anything under the car. I always recommend notching out with just using a drill and going to town on it and then just dremeling it, or if you have a router, route out that area. That way you can recess your weight and you don't have to worry about the guide rails or any kind of rubbing on the track, because obviously friction is your enemy in Pinewood Derby. You don't have a motor, you don't have an engine, no rockets or anything. It's just whatever you get from that initial swoosh down, you got to try to fight the friction. So friction, track to wheel, wheel to axle. And of course you don't want to have anything dragging down here that's track either. Let's talk about lubrication. Now you can get some fancy dancy stuff from the Scout shop or even online. Basically very fine graphite. Now they sell all kinds of crazy space age stuff. What you really need is just plain Jane fine graphite. Now where is my cheapy graphite? So what else needs graphite? Locks. You find this stuff super cheap. The only thing the Scout stuff has, or the Pro stuff has going for it, is this needle, the little syringe thing, because you can get in there and down back here. That is a benefit. Now this, I paid a pretty penny for this, but I refilled it with the cheap stuff. I just wanted it for the needle. Now what I recommend, you put your wheel together like here, put some graphite in there, spin it, and spin it, and spin it a whole bunch of times. It's just kind of polishing it and packing it in there. And there are techniques online for packing your wheels full of graphite. And remember, you can graphite before the race, but once the race is over, once the race is in session and running, you run your 4 passes. You can't stop and re-graphite. So you got to find a strategy for getting graphite in there and keep it in there throughout the race. And for that matter, you want to keep your axles in there. So I put a little dollop of glue in there just to make sure that these these axles aren't going to pop out or bend out, because when your car comes racing down the track, sometimes it'll tumble at the end and bounce off things. That just makes sure your car stays consistent, because consistency is the key of Pinewood Derby. You also know all these little glue boogers in here. I like to use hot glue. It makes it easy to remove the weights later on. I never leave my weights in my cars from years past because, well, it's expensive and I just reuse it. Another tip I would have is just tape a piece of paper across here. There'll be some irregularities with these weights, a little bit different angles, and when it hits the foam part at the end of the track, it may catch and cause your car to tumble. It's just something to kind of make it glide easier on the little finish strip, because you don't want to damage your car, because obviously spend a lot of time on that. Let's see what else I got to show you in the shop. Oh, you can go hog wild here. DeLorean, only caveat there, 88 miles an hour, bad stuff happens. Again, here you go. You can see where I had a sticker there, a rounded little dot covered here, and it folded over. That's so that I could polish that area with graphite and I didn't have the tackiness of the paint. Now you probably could paint that area and wet sand it, but the problem is around the time that we're racing, your car is probably still a little tacky. So definitely do not paint your car the night before. You want to paint it a couple days, maybe a week before. And the last thing you want to do is carefully assemble the wheels, because it's all about the wheels and axles. And for the most part, you know, people have fun painting and designing and carving and whittling the car, but you can even race the block of wood. I don't have the example here on my bench, but I actually took a block of wood. I hollowed it out so I could kind of get the weight distribution right. A lot of guys on the internet agree you want to get the balance point about an inch before in front of the rear axle. And you could be more aggressive with that. The problem is you get a lot of weight in the back and you lose a little bit of traction on the front and you get some chatter. And it's just going to bounce back and forth between that guide rail. And obviously, friction being the enemy of Pinewood Derby, you don't want any of that. But again, it's all wheels and axles. Now, I had some problems with some jitter on mine, so it didn't do too well, but guy at Scout Shop, one of the pros down there who holds a clinic, he claims to have a #1 fast car, won the race. That was just a block of wood, hollowed in certain sections and obviously brought up to 5 ounces, because really all you care about is the frictionless spin. So again, can we see it there? Can we see it? I don't know, but there's little burrs there on the wheel. You want to take those off. Let's see if I've got, goodness. So you want to take a little file. I like to put mine nail in the drill press and just bring the file up and just kind of kiss that nail and work it just to get that burr off. You don't want to go in there and dig in the nail, because you're going to make it too thin and then your wheel's going to bounce around in the axle. And then you just work up. Some guys start at 320 and work all the way up to like 4,000 grit sandpaper. I don't know if that's really necessary, because you can spend 30 minutes on a nail, and for little kids it gets very tedious and very boring. I find, again, a parent pro tip is 1 nail a night, nothing more than that, otherwise they lose complete interest in it and the process just becomes tedious. But again, when you're working on the drill press or even a mounted drill, safety should be paramount. Where do we go? Where do we go? See, I've already lost my safety squints. Well, then